my dad's parents. My dad's mom was a trapeze artist in France, and my dad's dad was an Irish vaudevillian, and when my dad was a kid, he was shipped off.
For 61 years, Melissa Gilbert kept America fooled. The little house on the Prairie star lived behind a perfect mask, while her real life crumbled in secret. In 2024, she finally broke her silence about the devastating truth. 2 bottles of wine every single night, a debt that nearly destroyed her, and a Hollywood betrayal so deep it changed everything. The innocent farm girl we loved was hiding something much darker. What she revealed about her childhood co-stars will shock you. Today, we're exposing the lies that built her career and the confession that ended them. Melissa Gilbert's life began with more twists than most Hollywood scripts. She was born on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles to Kathy Wood and David Darlington. Her father was a stock car racer and musician. Her mother worked as an exotic dancer. They met in scandal. Both were married to other people, each with 3 children of their own, when they ran off together. On a motorcycle trip in the desert, they conceived Melissa. They later married and combined their families, making her the 7th child in a busy household. But caring for 7 kids quickly became overwhelming. Within a day of her birth, they made the painful decision to place her for adoption. Her life changed almost instantly. She was adopted within 24 hours by Paul Gilbert and Barbara Crane, both already connected to the entertainment world. Paul had been a U.S. military fighter pilot and a circus aerialist until a 65-foot fall ended that career. Barbara was the daughter of Harry Crane, the creative force behind the Honeymooners, and she had worked as a dancer and actress. Melissa became part of a family steeped in show business. They later adopted a son, Jonathan, who would also find his way to television. Tragedy struck when she was 11. On February 13, 1975, Paul Gilbert died at 56. She was told he had suffered a stroke. Years later, she learned the truth. He had been in chronic pain and had taken his own life. This revelation, combined with her parents' divorce when she was 6, left her searching for father figures, something that would shape many of her choices in the years to come. Jonathan's path was both connected and separate from hers. Born on April 28, 1967, he joined the cast of Little House on the Prairie as Willie Olson, one of only 6 actors to appear in all 9 seasons. While Melissa played the kind-hearted Laura Ingalls, Jonathan was the mischievous antagonist. After the show ended, he left acting at 18, became a stockbroker in New York, and stayed out of the spotlight. Melissa was no stranger to a camera before Little House. She had appeared in dozens of commercials, including a memorable 1977 Alpo ad with Lorne Greene from Bonanza, where she proudly talked about her dog Fluffy winning a ribbon. Her first role came at age 3 in The Reluctant Astronaut in 1967. These early jobs gave her the confidence she needed when she auditioned for the role that would define her. Over 500 girls tried out for Laura Ingalls, but Melissa stood out. She showed up in overalls, a flannel shirt, and pigtails, still carrying dirt on her face. Her mother's only advice was to listen to whoever she was acting with. Michael Landon saw her screen test in 1973 and immediately knew she was the one. She found out she had the role in the most unusual way. Sitting in the school lunch area, a girl she didn't know approached her. "Are you Melissa?" she asked. When Melissa said yes, the girl introduced herself as Leslie Landon and told her, "My dad says you're going to be half pint." The news had come from Michael Landon himself at dinner the night before. Melissa ran to the office to call her mother, who hadn't heard yet. Leslie got into trouble for spilling the secret, but the 2 girls became lifelong friends. Her time on the show wasn't without controversy. When Dean Butler joined as Almanzo in season 6, he was 23. Melissa was just 15. Their first on-screen kiss in the episode Sweet 16 was her first kiss in real life. Her mother cried during filming. Butler later said the situation would never be allowed today. In the original books, Almanzo was 10 years older than Laura, but Butler admitted he wished the age gap on set had been smaller. On screen, Michael Landon was the perfect father figure. Off-screen, he was far more complicated. After Gilbert's own father died, Landon became a stand-in parent for her, but he was often sipping vodka from his coffee mug while they worked. Gilbert later admitted she gravitated toward men who carried the same scent of alcohol, not realizing the connection. When she struggled with addiction as an adult, Landon never reached out. Behind the family-friendly atmosphere of the set, smoking and drinking were part of daily life. Landon, Victor French, and Karen Grassel all wrestled with alcoholism. Gilbert eventually felt abandoned by the man she had once trusted as a father. The show itself was full of surprises. Though based on children's books, it was unafraid to dive into dark and unsettling territory. There were episodes about rape, arson, infant deaths, and addiction. Plots included epidemics, violent attacks, and deep grief. In one especially grim story, Laura believed she saw her neighbor decapitate his wife. Another episode featured rabid animal attacks, forcing Charles to kill infected livestock to protect his family. The mix of wholesome frontier life and disturbing events made the series both groundbreaking and controversial for its time. Gilbert's work did not go unnoticed. Across the show's 9 seasons from 1974 to 1983, she won 2 Young Artist Awards. These honors celebrated the best performances by actors under 18 and confirmed Gilbert's place as one of television's most talented young stars. She could handle playful Prairie moments just as well as emotional, high-stakes drama, proving her range and skill. The end came suddenly. In 1983, NBC removed the show from its fall lineup without even telling Michael Landon. Gilbert learned first and broke the news to him. He felt betrayed, and his anger showed in the final episode when the Walnut Grove set was blown up on screen. It was his way of making sure no one could ever use it again. For the cast, there was no heartfelt goodbye, just a wrap party and silence. After more than a decade together, it felt like being discarded. Melissa Gilbert was just 15 when she earned an Emmy nomination for her role as Helen Keller in the 1979 television version of The Miracle Worker. The casting was unusual and exciting. Patty Duke, who had once won an Oscar for playing Helen Keller in the 1962 film, now played the teacher Annie Sullivan. Gilbert had the more physically demanding role, portraying a deaf-blind girl who communicated through violent outbursts and constant physical struggles. The film was a huge success, winning 3 Emmy Awards and drawing massive audiences. Gilbert's nomination put her in the same category as experienced adult actresses, proving her skill went far beyond her years. For many, this was the first time they saw her as more than just the girl from Little House on the Prairie. A year later, at 16, she stepped into the role of Anne Frank in NBC's 1980 television adaptation of The Diary of Anne Frank. The 109-minute film followed Anne's life in hiding in Nazi-occupied Amsterdam, showing her growth from a 13-year-old girl to a young woman confronting the reality of death. The cast included Maximilian Schell and Joan Plowright, but it was Gilbert's performance that carried the emotional weight. She captured both Anne's innocence and her maturity, earning praise from critics who called her work excellent. It was a powerful reminder that she could handle roles with deep historical significance, stepping far away from the innocence of her Prairie Girl image. Between 1977 and 2011, she appeared in more than 40 made-for-TV films. That meant more than one movie a year for over 3 decades. Few actors in television could match that kind of output. She moved easily from one role to the next, often working on these films while still starring in Little House on the Prairie. While many child stars faded away, Gilbert stayed relevant, adapting to adult roles and exploring different genres. She went from historical dramas to thrillers to stories that tackled current social issues, proving she had no interest in being typecast. Some of her projects took on subjects that were intense and often controversial. In Blood Vows, the story of a mafia wife, she played a woman pulled into organized crime. Shattered Trust dealt with sexual abuse. Against Her Will, the Carrie Buck story exposed the dark history of forced sterilization in America. These were not safe or easy roles. They demanded emotional commitment and a willingness to challenge audiences. Many dealt with themes like women's rights, domestic violence, and historical injustices, pushing television movies into territory that was raw and thought-provoking. In the early 1990s, Gilbert surprised her fans by stepping into the world of voice acting. From 1992 to 1995, she voiced Barbara Gordon, but when the show returned as The New Batman Adventures, she was replaced by Tara Strong. The change came as a surprise to many, especially given her strong performance. Still, Melissa Gilbert was 17 when she fell for Rob Lowe. He was the same age, just starting to break into Hollywood. She was already famous for Little House on the Prairie. From the start, their romance was intense. It lasted 6 years, from 1981 to 1987, and was filled with highs and painful lows. Melissa later said it was very tumultuous and horrible at times. She wasn't ready for the wave of attention that came with Rob's fame. Crowds of female fans would brush past her like she wasn't even there, slipping phone numbers into his pockets as if she didn't exist. Rob's rising career also brought temptation, and Melissa eventually learned he had cheated on her more than once. One of those affairs, with Demi Moore during the filming of St. Elmo's Fire, made headlines. Yet it wasn't all heartbreak. She admitted they shared really, really fun times. Moments that left her with lessons about what she wouldn't accept in love again. In March 1985, Melissa reached a milestone that most actors never see so young. At just 21, she became one of the youngest actresses ever to earn a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was placed at 6429 Hollywood Boulevard. Rob stood beside her during the ceremony, beaming as her fiancé. The achievement was even more impressive considering she had beaten nearly 500 actresses for her role as Laura Ingalls Wilder back in 1974, when she was just 9. It was the peak of her childhood fame and the peak of their relationship, a moment that seemed to capture the magic of young Hollywood. Life with Rob was glamorous. Melissa was part of the 1980s celebrity scene, going to premieres, award shows, and parties alongside stars like Billy Idol. One night at Spago in Beverly Hills turned into something surreal. She was having dinner with Rob and Andrew McCarthy when Liza Minnelli swept in and asked her to help hide drinks from her sister. Suddenly, Melissa was surrounded by glasses of wine and screwdrivers. Then Michael Jackson joined them at the table, staying quiet, until he suddenly said, "You can come to my house. I've got a llama." It was exactly the kind of bizarre, unforgettable night that only seemed possible in that decade's Hollywood. But in 1987, when they were both 23 and engaged, everything fell apart. It wasn't another affair that ended it. It was Melissa's pregnancy. Rob told her he wasn't ready to be a father, and the engagement ended almost instantly. Soon after, she suffered a miscarriage. She lost her baby and her relationship in the same breath. Later, she wrote that it hurt like hell. The grief changed her. Melissa Gilbert's first marriage began like a love story, but ended in chaos and betrayal. In 1989, just 2 months after giving birth to her son Dakota, she found out that Bo Brinkman had brought a sex worker into their home. When she confronted him, he didn't apologize. He blamed her for his cheating. Things turned violent when she suggested he go to rehab for drinking. He flew into a rage and threatened to kill her. The pain deepened when she learned he was also having an affair with Shannon Doherty, her former Little House on the Prairie co-star. Gilbert's anger over that betrayal lingered for decades. She once admitted in 2014 that if she ever saw Doherty again, she would punch her. The marriage lasted 6 years before ending in 1994. Her second marriage seemed more stable. She married Bruce Boxleitner in 1995, and they were together for 16 years. But in 2011, a secret nearly destroyed everything. Gilbert, struggling with alcohol, had formed an emotional connection with a co-star during a stage production. She claimed it never turned physical, but she often compared her marriage to this new connection during long, alcohol-fueled conversations. One day, someone left a tape in their mailbox. On it were Gilbert's private talks about both men. When Boxleitner listened, he called her screaming. She dropped to her knees and begged for forgiveness. They tried counseling, but the trust was gone. In August 2011, she filed for divorce and asked for joint custody of their 15-year-old son, Michael. Her drinking worsened after her grandfather died. In her late 30s, she started drinking 2 bottles of wine every single night. This wasn't occasional. It was a strict routine that lasted for years. That meant about 14 drinks a night. She knew it was dangerous, but the alcohol dulled the grief and stress she didn't want to face. Publicly, she was still the beloved Little House on the Prairie star. Privately, she was dependent on alcohol to get through each day. The breaking point came during a dinner party. After her usual 2 bottles, she passed out in her dog's bed while guests were still in the house. She was completely unaware, lying on the floor beside her pet's sleeping spot while company sat in the other room. The humiliation was crushing, but it was also dangerous. She could have choked, suffered hypothermia, or died from alcohol poisoning. Her own son pleaded with her to stop. That night pushed her to join Alcoholics Anonymous and start a 12-step program. As her personal life spiraled, her finances collapsed. The IRS filed a tax lien showing she owed $360,000 in federal taxes for 2011 to 2013. California records revealed she also owed $112,000 in state taxes. In total, she was nearly $500,000 in debt. She called it a perfect storm, her alcoholism killing her career, the 2008 recession wiping out investments, and her divorce draining her money. In 2015, she had to leave her rented home near downtown Howell and move into a small log cabin in the woods. She set up payment plans with both the IRS and California, but the debt was a burden she would carry for years. Melissa Gilbert's rise to the top of Hollywood's most powerful actors union was nothing short of dramatic. As SAG's 23rd president and only the 3rd woman to hold the role, Gilbert oversaw a 98,000-member organization with a $1 billion health and pension fund during one of Hollywood's most turbulent periods. From 2001 to 2005, she pushed for health care and pension reforms, fought the loss of jobs to Canada and other countries, and lobbied for federal tax incentives to keep production in the U.S. She strengthened protections for child actors, drawing on her own early career experiences, but her presidency was plagued by constant internal battles. In July 2005, she stunned members by announcing she would not run for a 3rd term. The infighting, she said, was untenable, and she was tired of it. Her departure set the stage for another heated race, this time between Morgan Fairchild, Alan Rosenberg, and Robert Conrad.
There are rumors swirling at this hour that actress and congressional candidate Melissa Gilbert is going to be pulling out of her race in Michigan's 8th District.
On August 10, 2015, Gilbert took her ambitions beyond Hollywood, announcing her run for Congress in Michigan's 8th District. The date was no accident. It marked exactly 2 years since she moved to Howell, Michigan, with her husband, Timothy Busfield, who had taken a teaching job at Michigan State University. Gilbert quickly became the Democratic favorite, as no other major candidates had enough signatures to get on the ballot. The district hadn't sent a Democrat to Washington since the 1990s, and her campaign generated immediate buzz. But the excitement was tempered when Republicans revealed she owed over $470,000 in federal and state taxes. She blamed the debt on divorce proceedings and the financial hit she took during the 2008 recession. Still, she positioned herself as a voice for working families who felt left behind, leaning on her union leadership background and celebrity recognition. Comparisons to Ronald Reagan's political leap from SAG president to elected office were inevitable. The campaign ended in 2016, and it ended hard. In May, Gilbert withdrew, citing health problems that made the race physically impossible. The roots of her decision went back to 2 accidents in 2012. The first was during week 4 of Dancing with the Stars. Performing a paso doble, she fell, hit her head on Maxim Chemerkovsky's leg, and suffered a concussion and whiplash. Months later, a balcony collapsed on her head at a Studio City rental, adding spinal compression and nerve damage. By 2016, she had herniated discs, numbness in her hand, pain shooting down her arm, and loss of feeling in her neck. Doctors warned she couldn't withstand the demands of a campaign. Her name stayed on the ballot, but the race was over. Incumbent Republican Mike Bishop kept the seat with ease, and Democrats lost a rare shot at flipping the district. Gilbert's health battles had already shaped her career before politics. In 2009, she spent months touring with the Little House on the Prairie stage musical, playing Caroline Ingalls, unaware she was performing with a broken back. She pushed through the pain with epidural injections, IV steroids, therapy, and massages. Even after a fall made things worse. Only after the tour ended did a neurosurgeon confirm the fracture. In July 2010, she had her first major spinal surgery, a complex operation involving disc replacement and vertebra fusion, performed by Dr. Robert Bray in Newport Beach. It was the first of 4 such surgeries over the next decade. Her health concerns weren't limited to her spine. In January 2015, she decided to remove her size DD breast implants. They caused back and neck pain, interfered with exercise, and worsened her spinal issues. Post-surgery, the pain disappeared, and she returned to her natural A cup, joking she'd rejoined the itty-bitty titty committee. Her husband supported her completely, telling her to go for it. The 2012 Dancing with the Stars concussion was more than just a scary moment on live television. The adrenaline masked the damage until after the performance, when she grew dizzy and nauseous. She was carried off stage by fellow contestant Gavin DeGraw and taken to the hospital. That injury worsened her spine problems and contributed to the need for her 3rd surgery. Gilbert also lived for decades with an undiagnosed condition called misophonia. Everyday noises like chewing or gum popping triggered intense emotional reactions. On the Little House set, she would tear up or turn red when co-stars made certain sounds. Her children weren't allowed to chew gum, and they developed a silent signal to tell each other to stop making noise. Menopause made it worse. Finally, she reached out to Duke University's Center for Misophonia and Emotional Regulation. After 16 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy, she had the tools to manage her reactions. Learning the condition had a name was a relief that left her in tears. When Melissa Gilbert picked up the phone to call her biological father, she thought she would have to explain everything. She planned to tell him who she was, to share her story step by step. But before she could get far, the conversation turned in a way she never expected. She told him she was an actress and asked if he had ever watched Little House on the Prairie. Without hesitation, he said, "You're Laura, aren't you? I knew it." He had been watching her for years, recognizing his own features on the face of the young girl playing Laura Ingalls. The realization hit her hard. She had spent decades wondering about her origins, yet all this time he had known. He was a stock car racer and musician, living his life, silently aware that the girl on television was his daughter. Meeting her half-siblings only confirmed what he had felt. When they stood together for the first time, the resemblance was undeniable. They shared the same eyes, the same smile, the same way of moving. In 61 years, Melissa had never seen her own features reflected back at her. It was as if pieces of a puzzle she didn't know she had were suddenly falling into place. She learned that her biological parents had been married to other people, each with 3 children, before running away together. She became child number 7 before being placed for adoption. Her mother Kathy's story was filled with both resilience and tragedy. Kathy had worked as an exotic dancer, living a life tied to the entertainment world in a way that mirrored Melissa's adoptive family. Sadly, Kathy had died before Melissa began her search, leaving no chance for them to meet. On Mother's Day, Melissa posted a picture of her birth mother, writing that Kathy had the courage to love me enough to let me go. The truth of her conception was dramatic. Her parents had been on a motorcycle trip in the desert when she was conceived. It was wild, impulsive, and, as Melissa later said, explained a lot about her own bold nature. The push to find her biological family began years earlier in 1989, when her son Dakota was born. She held him for the first time and saw her own eyebrows and lips on his tiny face. She had never seen anyone who looked like her before. That moment lit a spark. She knew there had to be more people out there who shared her features. That instinct proved right when she finally met her half-siblings and saw the same familiar traits repeated in each of them. The most shocking part of her family's history was its sheer size and complexity. Her parents had left their spouses, married each other, and moved all 6 children in together. Melissa was the 7th. The decision to place her for adoption wasn't about rejection. It was about survival. 7 children in one household was too much to handle. Years later, Melissa would face another life-changing decision, but this time it was her choice alone. In 2015, at 50 years old, she had her breast implants removed after decades of carrying them. She also stopped Botox, facial fillers, and hair dye. She let her natural gray hair grow in, leaving behind the frozen Hollywood version of herself. She gained more than time and money. She gained freedom. Her personal life found stability in 2013 when she married actor Timothy Busfield at the San Isidro Ranch. She was 48, he was 55, and they both brought children from previous marriages. She wore a bold red gown, and from the start, they built their marriage on shared decision-making. Together, they left Hollywood for a 14-acre farm in New York's Catskills. They renovated a run-down cabin, raised chickens, and planted gardens. Melissa traded designer shoes for muddy boots, and she never looked back. In 2022, she launched Modern Prairie, a company for women over 50, built on community and empowerment. She believed in speaking to women like herself, not at them, and the response proved there was a powerful market waiting to be heard. Now, at 61, Melissa has drawn a line. She has zero tolerance for anyone trying to control her. She embraces her age, rejects anti-aging ideals, and lives entirely on her own terms. From a Hollywood child star to a rural entrepreneur, her journey is one of finding and keeping herself.